First off, how was your screening last night? It was the world premiere.
It could not have been better. What do you think, Gene?
I was blown away. Oh, I'll start crying, only because no one saw the film. Really, none of the cast, none of the crew, really, except for key producers and editor, obviously. And so I didn't know what the reaction was, and it was just overwhelming. People were crying, people were laughing, and then they were crying again and laughing. I could not have expected it. It was beyond my expectations.
I have to admit that because we were screening it obviously in the middle of America during a time of lots of polarization, you never know what the reaction is going to be, whether people might see a film like this that dwells on some very uncomfortable topics is too awkward, too dangerous, too risky. But the audience embraced it like I couldn't imagine. People afterwards were coming up and saying there were scenes that they were never going to forget for the rest of their lives in seeing it. And we got 2 standing ovations. And I broke down in tears at the end of it.
Yeah. Just echoing what Gene and Jeff spoke about, it was definitely an incredible experience. I mean, we've seen the cut so many times, like 20 million times, and we have these expectations on moments in the movie, like, will they react? We hope they react here. We hope they react here. And they actually did, but there are other moments in the film that people were reacting to that were like, well, I didn't expect they were laughing there or crying there or getting emotional there. That just felt rewarding because that means they were engaged, and we were just grateful that the people took the movie with open arms. So it's great. Yeah.
That's awesome. You talked about the topic. I'll speak to the 2 writers, the co-writers here. It's a very sticky subject. When you were writing it, were you afraid of, xenophobia in America, of writing a script about that without being too preachy? Because you guys really never preached. You showed what we needed to see rather than preaching. Or did you have any, I don't know if I want to write about this? What were your hesitations?
Well, go first.
I was going to say Jean should talk first in some ways because ultimately this is a story that she came to me and then everybody else with as a story that she experienced firsthand in a lot of ways. She divides her time between the West Coast and Wyoming. But when she first came to me to talk about this, pitching this project to a certain extent, we'd already been friends for a while, and we actually were meeting for the first time after the pandemic was starting to open up and comparing notes. And she said, you know what? Somebody should do something about this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that would be a really good idea, Gene. And Gene's like, I'm going to do something about this. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a believer of empathy, I guess, and that's the big word for me. And I always know that whenever there's judgment or anger or hostility or hate, when you hear someone's story, really hear the story. You empathize in whatever that story is. So I thought, let's show characters who can share their story to create that empathy. And I think that will heal or maybe at least bring the divide closer. And I always felt like the new generation, the younger generation, I have hope in. And that was really important for me.
I just want to add one thing. I know that we frame it as being about this great divide that's in America, but I think one of the really wonderful things about the story and how Jean, when she first came to me and described it, is that this isn't just a story about America. This is a story about the divides that exist between humans. And I really think that Miwa's character in particular raises up the fact that wherever you will find people, you'll find people who see other people as different, other, dangerous, and bad. And her story really carries that.
Yeah, I read a script and I fell in love with it because it's so easy to blame different generation and different kind of people or different look of people, what have you, and it's divided. But this one had, almost everybody, even George had a heart, and he pulled off really nicely, as an actor, but he had that yearning for his mother, dead mother. It was coming through. And Grandma had things to say, and things they couldn't say to her daughter. She was saying it, and the grandson really yearned to hear that kind of stuff. I was totally blown away. I was doing it. I mean, I said, I'm not going to do for another director, but 6 scenes in one day, because I didn't even feel like it was laboring, because I just wanted to say it so badly, So I said it yesterday, but the reason I became an actor later in my, years, this is the reason. Just telling story like this, I'm done. Coming next to this is bonus. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
No?
I would go ahead. Because I want to ask the composer some questions. Because your score is beautiful.
Thank
and
you.
it really brings it all together. I noticed the score. Who are your influences? Because that was a beautiful score.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, obviously John Williams is a huge one. He's one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest. But, this is a really fun process. And actually, in the film, you see that there's a Korean lullaby in that. And from the start, when I was reading the script, way before we even started, Gene was talking about how that was a part of, an important part of the music and the essence of the film is having this Korean lullaby. And so like having that real Korean influence in the music as well was huge, and it was awesome to kind of incorporate that into a more traditional cinematic sound. But it was the whole experience was amazing, and especially after hearing Miwa's story about how that lullaby specifically is so personal to her, it made me feel very special to help her tell that story.
So it was a real lullaby?
Yeah.
Oh, that's even cooler now.
I raised my kids with it. I don't know. I was always told I was, not carrying tone just right, So I just thought, I'll make it up, I'll do the lyric right, but I'm singing it. And he told me I was,
You're perfect.
perfect. So Broadway, here I am.
I know you draw from a lot of real experiences, and I swear to God, I've been at that dinner table that you did. That was one of my favorite scenes, because it's like, oh, we've been to the same dinners. And they said the same things. So, and one of your actors, the younger actors that I interviewed earlier, talked about how real everything was to him, because he was back in that town, I guess, with some friends, and experienced racism as a little treat, as a little going-away treat. What kind of reaction are you expecting from people that are going to be seeing this, all nationalities, to the slights that we all deal with?
Do you guys have any comments or
Well, I think it's just what Wes was speaking yesterday at the Q&A, and the actors, and what Gene embarks on is empathy. I think it's the message is unity for the next generation, and it's communication. No matter who or what color you are, I think that's the hope that we have for this film. Is by the end of the film, you realize there's hope for the future, and I think that's what I take away from it.
The dinner table scene is one of my 3 favorite scenes in the movie, but it's the one that's the hardest because we had to shoot it under such pressure with so many different angles, so many different takes, and the fact that we were able to actually make that work is just such a testimony to not just the actors and how good they are at delivering those lines, but ad-libbing and acting with just expression and reaction. It's a very uncomfortable scene. It's a scene that's all about microaggressions, good intentions, bad reactions, and yet somehow it doesn't feel like something, it doesn't feel like a hand grenade. It feels like something where people will recognize, maybe cringe a little, but ultimately see that everybody at that table is well-meaning. They just need to learn a little something.
Yeah. No, I agree. What I love is I love that scene, and we have so much footage of that scene. I mean, we can make that scene 3 times as long. That scene, and
I pushed for that.
Yes, he wanted it longer. I said we got to cut it down, and the actors were going loopy because we're shooting until way in the late of the night, and they were starting improv and going off the rails. So we have a lot of great BTS us behind this, extra footage for that scene. But what was great is, but the actors, it wasn't just what they said. It was like even Jenna, the eye roll that she does was brilliant. It was and it didn't. You don't have to be Korean. You don't have to be Asian. It's all nationalities that understand these conversations, and that's what it related to everybody. It's not just a Korean or Asian thing, and that was what was wonderful. Like you said, you're not Korean, and you related with it, and you said I've been in those conversations before. So that's lovely, and it was well intended. The Kent and Kendra of the characters they really were well intended, and that's how they played it, and that's how they believed. And I said absolutely, and it had a good heart. They had good hearts in it. So.
Now, as the director, it's your job to get all these fabulous performances from everybody, and you did. Was Ken your first choice? Because he's a comedian. I've never seen him do anything serious, and you got serious out of him.
Oh, so we wrote I had the script, and then I said, this dad character, I'm not a Korean male. So I know I need somebody else, a Korean, an Asian at least, male to write this part, because I knew it was lacking. The children I got, and Jenna I got, and the grandmother I understood. And so then when Jeff came, and I go, you need to get, and he took it, and I mean, that monologue, I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
I'm not spoiling it either.
I mean, that monologue is Jeff's. I read it and I'm like, Jeff. And then when we were sitting around, and I said, Jeff, want to come on, and he became producer on it, and we're sitting around, who should we have? And we needed a Korean male. Okay, there's in 5 fingers you could name 5 Korean males that you can, there's more, but we wanted more, someone that was probably someone that we were familiar with, which I thought was important for the film, for even marketing standpoint. And also we thought it'd be a good role that we need to get a Korean. And so Ken Jeong and Jeff was like, what about Ken Jeong? He wants to do, I'm friends with him, good friends with him, and he wants to do dramatic. And I said, and everybody went around and we're like, literally around, yes, 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 yes. It was hands down a yes, because and Ken sent me a link to something that he did before. It was a smaller scene of a dramatic, and I said, he has it. I just know he has it, and we knew it. And I don't want to spoil like how we shot him and what we did when his process of doing that scene. But that scene, he said, I could do comedy. This is hard, drama is hard. But we all felt on set, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about it, we all felt on set like we knew magic happened in that moment. Like something happened on set when he was doing that scene. It meant so much to us in our community. And you want to talk about it? Oh, do it.
Sure. That scene in particular was one of those moments where you it was heavy. It's a heavy scene, so we're all knowing what we needed to happen, what we were hoping to happen, but we don't ever really know how it's going to turn out. Even him, he'd never done this before, on camera, so he was particularly nervous about it. And afterwards. Even from the rehearsal, we immediately got this sense that this, from the words we knew that it was going to be something special, but then to actually see it come to fruition and him sort of knock it out of the ballpark was relief isn't even the word. It was a moment of like she said, magic. It really just made all that it became real. It became the struggle that this is about, and you understand that we're trying to convey. It actually, you saw it and you felt it in his words, and seeing it on the small screen was one thing, and you sort of hope that it translates on a big screen, in your face when you're seeing it, and so that's for me what was magical about last night. There were all these moments that you see when you're making something, and you know it's gonna be good, and you hope it's gonna cut good, but you never really know what it's gonna look like or how it's gonna feel when they're bigger than life on a big screen, and you hope that it just translates in the right way because they're so close and it's just so in your face. So I think people are in for a treat, really.
Yeah, it was the room. Just we were behind the scenes and just watching from the screen, and we felt it. Just felt it through the walls, through the screen, and to finally get to see it on the big screen. It's like once you hit once, you're like you kind of felt it, but it just kind of pounds again because I think it's something that we face on a daily basis, all the time, and that's again, not just as Asians, but other cultures too, that feeling gets pounded back onto us on a consistent basis. And what I love about that monologue is that it really just brings it to light for us to see and really, come on, let's not have that awkward dinner table talk. Let's educate. And that's what I love about this movie is without preaching it, it's there. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was really nice to be on the set, and I want to give credit to Gene and Brian and Jeff for really making it sort of a family community feel from day one. It was interesting to be on a set where I was the minority for the first time, but I enjoyed that because you guys, it made me realize, there's room at the table for everyone. Obviously it's a competitive industry, and that's just going to always be. But seeing that we could all come together from different backgrounds and ethnicities, like even within the Asian community, there's Vietnamese, there's Korean, so it wasn't even just one Asian ethnicity. So that was just so fun to be a part of, and that you guys just kind of took me into and introduced me to all of that, and let me be a part of that was really special. So thank you guys for just creating an atmosphere. And I think it was such a passionate crew of people. I think that's just what makes this film work, really. Like obviously the writing's great, the acting's phenomenal. But I think the passion that everybody brought to this project really comes through. And I think that's why it is such a personal and moving story, because everybody gave something personal to this film. And Gene and Brian and Jeff thanked everyone for that too. Nothing went unnoticed or unthanked on set. And so I think, that was really special. And I think that's, for me, kind of hopeful, that's encouraging. Like I said, that moving forward, we can hopefully, say, hey, there's room for all of us to be here, and we can have, one of the things I really liked that they did is Gene was very purposeful that all the heads of the departments were Asian American or Asian descent, so, but that didn't mean that other people couldn't be there too, so, yeah, I think that to me is what really comes through on the big screen. And, like I said, I hadn't seen it. None of us had seen it. So I think that really comes through, and that was really powerful and really cool to see. So thank you for that.
You were the grip, so you can tell me, who was the cinematographer?
Ray Huang. Yeah.
Okay, and what did you guys shoot on? Because it was beautiful.
An Ari, I'm not sure which one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see a grip sitting amongst you. And that just goes to the director and the producers, because usually the grip, it's like, who?
Yeah. I felt like that for most of the time. I was like, they certainly don't know who I am, but they were always like, oh, Josh, It was great. So, yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
From Wyoming, and he's from.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that was cool, too, to be from that little small town of Wyoming and just seeing every shot. I'm like, oh, man, I know that bend in the river and that curve in the road. I'm like, that was really surreal, too. But, yeah.
Thank you. If we can get it back to them.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I have one final question. What is your ultimate hope for this film? Have you been picked up for distribution yet? You will.
We have not been picked up for distribution. We're just thrilled to be opening and be part of the Bentonville Film Festival. It's just the perfect home for us for a festival. It truly is. What they believe in, and the love and the support and what our film stands for, it's like the perfect home. You couldn't have asked for a better festival for us to be in. I mean, it literally is. It could not be more perfect. And then to open for them and to get the reception that we did. So now we really was just focused on that first, and then we want the same feeling for a distributor. Obviously, we want some kind of theatrical release, because this is the kind of film that deserves the way that the cinematography and the beauty of the land is best appreciated on the big screen. So we would love that, and we hope to get a wonderful home in the same way that we have with Bentonville, and be celebrated. And our cast and everybody's so thrilled and excited. So you have a very fervent and excited and passionate people all here waiting to see where we're going to land. Yeah.
The only thing I would add is that the journey of getting there, from the spark in Jean's eyes all the way through to actually being here and beyond, so much of it really is a testimony to the resilience and the determination of Jean herself, really just leading this team, convincing every single person here that we should be a part of this, in many cases over our hesitations or doubts. But, everything happens for a reason. There was even, we actually had to reshoot key scenes in this, because I think Jay mentions this. She had an accident on the day right before the
big monologue.
Her big monologue.
Yeah.
And so she had a big egg, kind of on her forehead that ended up being quite visible. And so once we actually saw it in editing, we were like, oh my God, we can't let that be. So we decided, at some expense, to reshoot her scenes, and also at that moment take advantage of the changed climate and world that we were in to recraft some scenes that we'd already written as well. And we ended up actually giving her a new monologue in collaboration. I mean, I sat down with her and said, tell me the most uncomfortable and unpleasant thing that you went through, and let's do something with that. And I think it all pays off on screen. The new scenes ended up being perfect for the closure of the movie. Somehow or other, Lam ended up editing it all together despite everything. But again, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, and I want to add one thing about, I really am so grateful. Everybody that came, I will say that we got into overtime. Usually a lot, I don't know, someone told me this, it goes, Jean, you don't understand, I've been in a lot of crew. Every time you go into overtime, it doesn't matter how great your film is, they will complain, and they'll even say, we're not doing this anymore, we're out. I did not hear one person that said that. And we went into overtime in different days for different reasons. Not one. I mean, that's how much this crew were together. And I want to also talk about post, which people don't talk about post a lot. Company 3, which does color, and the Formosa did the sound mix. I mean, they basically there's only a few films they'll do this with, where they almost, I wouldn't say pro bono, because we did pay them, but it was, a fraction to get that kind of quality people who are winning Oscars and Golden Globes and massive films and doing the Marvels. I'm in the same screening room as Marvel doing our film, is because they said no, because Jean, we believe in this story. If people like that, companies like that is going to support our little engine that could, Asian hate story, was a gift. And so why I want to find a perfect home, find the festival, is not necessarily just for me. It really, truly, it's for everybody I feel I owe to give their time, their love, their passion. It wasn't for money. It was just all that. I want everybody to be blessed for that. And so that's really my heart for this film, and for everybody behind the scenes and all the companies that came forth to help us.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Appreciate it.
Thank you.